Let's make that bankroll spill.
Happy Friday, degenerates. Welcome back to the Undefeated post-weigh-in show. I'm your host. I'm your guy. You're always sitting here. I said you're always, but it makes sense. I am your always. Little slip of the tongue, but it works. I'll take it. Welcome back, everybody. We got fights tomorrow. It's UFC Macau. They are halfway across the world. And so some of you are going to enjoy waking up first thing in the morning and slipping some Baileys in your coffee. Some of us are going to sleep halfway through the card, and then we'll just tune in when we end up getting up. Some of you are going to pull all-nighters like the true degenerates that you are, and I love you. You guys are the ones that are close, near, and dear to my heart. This is the best damn betting show on the internet today for MMA. We are going to go over one final time these fighters as they step on the scales, as they face off with each other. We're going to see who the UFC statisticians are lying about when it comes to height and reach, because some of these people try to pad their numbers, and we make sure we don't put up with any of that bullshit here on this show. And then we'll talk about the fights one last time, and we'll see if we can lock in and make some cash for UFC Macau. Make sure you guys hit that like button for me, and let's get into this damn thing. Let's see here. Donald says, who's going to be ready to roll at 3 a.m.? I got to tell you, Donald, it's with the time zones, that's 1 a.m. for me. So I will not be up for Nick Motta. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. I will probably try to get up a little bit early, but I'm going to be, oh, geez, it's going to be like most of the way through the card. I might be catching the main card live. You know what I mean? So I'm going to have to lock in pretty dang early. My guy Dixon in the house. TH, what's going on? Aubrey. It is not snowing, but I got to tell you, Dixon, it is colder than the Dickens right now. My office, I've talked about this a couple times. We call it the ice box because the insulation isn't great and there's a lot of windows. So the natural lighting is fantastic, but when it gets cold, I'm freezing. I've got a space heater that we sometimes have to roll out in here. I try to hold off on that as long as possible because once you get that extra heat going, you kind of can't ever get away from it. So I'm suffering and lasting as long as I possibly can without doing that. We have not switched on the actual heater yet because we're in that time of year where it's freezing in the morning, the sun comes up, and it's shorts weather outside for a couple of hours, and then it's freezing again at night. Winter in the desert, baby. Gotta love the swings. So trying to stay away from spending on that heating bill as long as we possibly can, but it's we're running out of time. My thin blood is gonna make me turn that heat on sooner than later. All right, guys. So first note of the day, normally speaking, I watch both the actual weigh-ins and the ceremonials leading up to this show, so I can tell you everything about these fighters and let you know who looked really rough on the scales and all that kind of stuff. Because we're in Macau, most of my usual outlets didn't have the video going for the live stream. I'm going to have to kind of like stitch things together from, TikTok or people's Instagrams where they posted their trainer filming them step on the scale. Like that's all we got. So I don't have a whole lot for the actual weigh-in portion of it. And I don't believe there's any type of ceremonial weigh-in of face-offs or anything like that. Everybody's sleeping over there right now. So we got what we got, and I'm mostly going to be rolling with the face-offs. The information is not quite as good as it normally will be on this particular show. So I do apologize for that. First fight of the night, we've got Maha shot, and he's taking on Nicholas Motta. 155.5 for Maha shot, 155 on the dot for Nick Motta. Maha shot, I can't quite figure this kid out. Like, I was super high on him, and I think so was the UFC. They threw him to the wolves really fast, really early. He is big for this weight class. He's a bit of a size bully, but the results have been kind of hit and miss. He's extremely young still, so there's lots of room for improvement. But frankly, I'm a little bit worried about like his mental state because he's already been in some serious wars, and he does not appear to enjoy getting hit very much. He's been knocked out once already, Slava Claus, in his last fight, and then he came out and fought really, really scared against Gabriel Benitez. So I'm not sure if this guy is built for the fire the UFC is putting him in. He looked okay on the scales today. Nick Motta, on the other hand, career best. This guy is one of those fighters who's usually a little flabby. He's usually a little tubby. Like, he really has a broad set of shoulders. He's short, he's squat, but because of that, he's not ripping abs or anything like that. he looks incredible. He's got abs for the first time in his career. Like, he is taking this fight extremely seriously and looks like he is in phenomenal shape coming into this spot. So Nick Motta taking this opportunity extremely seriously. There is a big size difference here, though, you guys. Maha's shot is huge. Now, again, Motta has that frame, though, where he's got the Jim Miller back thing going on, where he's extremely broad, big shoulders, wide back. When these two face off, you're like, damn, Motta's tiny. And then they turn sideways as they like both walk off the stage. And you're like, oh shit, Motta's like twice as wide as this kid. So it's not really like a you're bigger than me type situation. There's a chance Motta could be stronger. You know, Motta wings those big power hooks. There's a chance Motta hits harder. Like, this is definitely one of those fights where it could go either way. And just because one guy's taller doesn't mean much except for the range attacks. You know, you got to watch out for those. What's going on, everybody? EQ rolling in here. And Mark Seelenberg, my guy. Glad you made it live. So for this first fight of the night, I said Maha shot, you know, on Monday. And I kind of still feel like this is every fight on this card, you guys, is set up for the Chinese audience, right? So I believe they're putting Mahashat in a fight where he should be able to win. But even against Nick Motta, I am struggling to get to this minus 200 price tag. When Nick Motta wins, he destroys people. He's got that big overhand left. He is extremely fast. He is very aggressive. Now, he got taken down and washed by Trey Ogden. He got KO'd with one big shot from Manuel Torres, and Jim Miller KO'd him. But I mean, like, the level of people that are finishing him are not Mahashat. You know, Mahashat got grinded out by Hoffa Garcia when he missed weight. Mahashat got TKO'd by Slava Claus, who, as much as Slava is an incredible striker, he's very skilled, very talented, very high level. You know, he's 500 in the UFC. He's struggling at the UFC level. He can't put the whole game together. And then he wins a split over Gabriel Benitez, a guy that's a complete fade, complete dust, not a good look. And he was getting backed up in that fight, didn't look comfortable. I mean, since he just, you know, melted Steve Garcia in the wrong weight class in his UFC debut, Mahashat has not looked like a guy who can cover a minus 200 spread. I like violence in this spot. I think this fight is not going the distance. We know we can count on Nick Motta to basically barrel his way forward and charge into big, powerful shots, trying to land his own. So I think the knees and the elbows and, you know, all that kind of stuff is going to be there for Mahashat. If Mahashat wants to take him down, we've seen him level change a couple different times. That might work on Nick Motta because he's so much bigger than him. But also on the other side of things, the left hand of Nick Motta, that's actually what really did a lot of the damage for Slava. Was he was very intelligent with like that lead left hook, and then he hit him with like a left hook right cross combo, and that was the end of Maha's shot in that spot. I could see Nick Motta doing something very, very similar. So I think Nicholas Motta by KO is on the table. If Maha shot had stayed with Fight Ready and was doing anything with his ground game that I could see, the 12-1 by sub for Maha shot would be something interesting, because let's not forget Nicholas Motta, when Trey Ogden got on top of him, that was like a phantom tap. They said that he tapped. I thought he did. It was a round 3 finish for Ogden, but because the ref jumped in maybe a little bit early, they called it a no contest, and it ended up costing me because I had a big Trey Ogden bet there that weekend. So there is an opportunity for the ground game to be a path here for Mahashat as well if he doesn't feel like standing with this guy, but a very, 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 very dangerous fight. Dixon Sider says, how about fight ends by KO as a parlay piece? Maybe. I mean, it could get extended with a decision. Like I said, there is some ground game grappling threat. So like, I'm not a fight ends by type of fighter. Type of gambler. I've never really played the game that way. I know some people have had some success. Shout out my guy, Liam Picks Fights. He gets the fight ends by sub because both guys have grappling upside pretty regularly. And those are usually pretty juicy, sexy prices. So I do think that that's something that's on the table. Sorry, not the sub in this fight. Sorry, I'm just saying I don't personally look for those ends by certain specific finish types personally, and maybe I should. Maybe that's a wrinkle of my game that I'm missing, but not usually something I like to do. So I'm gonna say under, and it's one of those weird ones that, God, the closer we get to this thing, the more I'm thinking that Maha shot at minus 200 is just wrong, you know? So maybe it's dog or pass from a betting perspective. I wish I could watch this one live and like make adjustments and see if there was a live entry opportunity, something like that. I guess I'll stick with my initial read. I'll say Maha shot goes ahead and gets the win, but I can't lay that price tag on him. And if I'm betting it, it's going to be the Motta side or a violence bet. I think the violence is probably the best thing we could do here on this one. Quang Lee and Xiao Long. We've got 136 for Lee, 135 for Xiao Long. Again, a couple of guys I did not actually get to see on the scales today. These two size up extremely well. This was a very good, fun face-off. Both guys are good to go. I don't have a good read on this fight. Long is 26 years old. He's way younger. Quang Lee is 33. He had his UFC debut on short notice against a guy like Chris Gutierrez. I'm sure this is probably a spot that favors the younger guy just because that's how generally MMA is, right? The younger you are, the better of an opportunity that you've got. But he won his last fight via a split decision, and I'm not overly impressed with that fight. It was, I believe, the Road to UFC finale the last time out. So he's only ever fought Road to UFC caliber type of guys. And with these two guys fighting the same caliber of opponent, Quang Lee is undefeated. His only loss was a guy that's actually a UFC fringe contender type of guy. So I kind of lean towards the dog money on Quang Lee just a little bit, but the youth and everything else says you probably want to be on the long side. This is not a fight that I'm going to be betting. There's a lot of people who very much might want to dig into some of these things. And yeah, Mark. Yeah, I said that at the top of the show, man. Thank you. I do want to make sure everybody knows. I talked about this on my Total Takedown as well. I was of the understanding that Maha was staying at Fight Ready. So going back to the first fight of the night, he is not at Fight Ready. I thought he was going to be doing a full-on second camp over there, but in preparation for this one, I guess he did not. He went on back to China. So that's why I'm pumping the brakes big time on Maha. I feel like Fight Ready is the type of camp that could do something with a young kid that's got that kind of upside, that size, that frame. Like they could teach him what he needs to do. And I trust Fight Ready to do that and to bring out the best in him moving forward in his young career. I have no idea of his training circumstances now, though, without them. So, that's kind of, it's another thing that's given me a little hesitation on the Maha side. I was a little high on him on Monday, and now I'm kind of pumping the brakes a little bit and backing off a bit here. The next fight is one that's super interesting and really bothering me. Loner Kavanaugh and Jose Ochoa. Loner Kavanaugh 126, Jose Ochoa 125. Guys, Ochoa is huge. He's freaking massive. Like, Loner Kavanaugh looks like he should be a 115-pound fighter. Ochoa looks like he's a full weight class different here. He's absolutely gigantic. When these two faced off, like, my breath caught. I was like, holy shit. So on Monday, I talked about how I thought Loner Kavanaugh was probably the side. Maybe he's a decent parlay piece. I like how smooth of an operator he is. He's got real slick footwork. He just kind of glides around the cage. He's only 25 years old, but Jose Ochoa is more of a banger, a brawler. He's your classic, Muay Thai kid from Brazil rocking in there from Diego Shoot the Box. And, he brings it. This kid brings it every single time. Now, Loner Kavanaugh has been clipped a couple of times. We've seen him wobble a little bit, and I have very notably been a guy that said that we need to pump the brakes on these Cage Warriors prospects. I don't think they are the same crop or caliber as some of the previous Cage Warriors prospects that we've received in the past. And seeing the size difference here, the way Loner moves and the way he flows and the way he dips his head and he rolls with these shots and he counters people, it's gorgeous. But I've really only ever seen it on people that are about his size. I've really only seen it on people that might even be a little bit smaller than him. Jose Ochoa is huge. I mean, I don't know that that's going to work. Like, if you're rolling around with this kid and then a knee flies up the middle, I don't know that you're getting out of the way of it. And I do have slight worries about the durability for Loner Kavanaugh. Now, I wasn't entirely sure that a guy like Jose Ochoa was going to be one to, test that, but then you run back through some of his tape and yeah, maybe it's a little low level, but he's got 6 wins by KO and a lot of them come in the first round. Like, this kid's nasty and he gets to the deep second as well. So like, yeah, he's never gone the distance. He's never been to a decision, but he's gotten deep into the second round before and then finished people there. So I think his cardio checks out well enough. He's coming from a good, solid fight camp. He's an extremely violent fighter. I like everything I see about Ochoa. I cannot lay this price tag on Loner Kavanaugh now. So, like, my opinion from Monday on this fight has completely 180'd on this one. I kind of like violence. This total is 2.5. It's pick 'em. I do think under in this kind of a fight would make some sense. And I think Jose Ochoa, this is essentially another Dana White's Contender Series fight. Ochoa was supposed to get on Dana White's Contender Series. Kavanaugh was on Dana White's Contender Series. Now they're both in the UFC. I think they're both valid prospects. I do think they both have a future in the sport. So we are going to be moving these guys up in the world, but it's basically still a Contender Series level fight, right? Like that's where these two guys are at this point. So I'm expecting violence. I'm expecting, gas pedal. And I think Jose Ochoa is far more dangerous than I gave him credit for. That height difference, my goodness, that's gonna be interesting to see exactly how this thing plays out, because the size difference between these two guys is significant. Loner, like I mentioned, has been tagged a couple times before. Ochoa by KO is like 7-1. Which, by the way, shame on the U.S.-based sports books. They are just now populating their props for this fight card. Can you believe that? Like we're like 12 hours away from fight time at this point, and they are finally getting their props out there. I understand it's not the biggest card in the world, but like, come on, bro, you got to be better off than that. EQ saying Kavanaugh's line is just not justifiable. Completely agree with that. Daly saying missed the first two breakdowns. Anything significant? Just the size difference of Motta's back. Daly is really the significance in the first fight of the night, and also me confessing that I was incorrect and Maha shot is not at fight ready for this camp. So I'm a little bit more hesitant on that first fight than I was earlier in the week. Still like violence though. Dixon saying, Clint, according to YouTube and Twitter, MMA pundits, Ochoa is the next Diego Lopez. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe he is. That's the problem with these shoot the box kids though, man. We've seen so many of them and they look like they're going to be the next Charles Oliveira right out the gates. And then they spaz out and they don't make it. And then they get finished by somebody. But then 2 fights later, all of a sudden they're taking somebody's head off. Like they just fight, man. They just fight. So some of them are going to have long and storied careers, and some of them are, built for the prelims, and we'll have to just kind of wait and find out which is which. This Ochoa kid looks like he's very, very promising, and he's just 23 years old. So who knows? Sky's the limit at this point, as far as I'm concerned. Next fight up, Carlos Hernandez, 125.5. Narman Jargal Turgal Hammerbell, 125.5. This is another one where I wanted to wait. Now, on this one, I wasn't sure on Monday because I wanted to see it. What a wild situation for this fight. Narman Jargal is definitely the larger of the two men. He's got a size advantage on Carlos Hernandez, but it's not significant, right? He's a little bigger, but it's not like he's crazy large or anything like that. I've always said that Carlos Hernandez's weakness is the physicality. When somebody can match his physicality, when somebody can just be beefier than him, that's when he tends to lose. So I was watching this very closely, because if this guy is not quite as good as Carlos Hernandez, but he's bigger and stronger, that could be all she wrote. Like he could just get this thing done based on being bigger and tougher. Now, if you look at this guy's Instagram and stuff like that, he is a wild man. This is another guy that wears a crazy hat, that is taking pictures out in the mountains. He's all up in his traditional gear, riding horses with his shirt off. I mean, like, if there was ever an aura fighter on this card, it is this dude. He has got aura all about him right now. And he's coming in here looking for another finish. He's only got one decision on his entire career. But you go back and you run some of the tape, I mean, especially on the road to UFC stuff, and man, he could not stay on his feet. Like, he goes for it. I love how fast he starts. I love how hard he throws, but he's getting taken down so cleanly, so easily. And that's something that I really have a hard time getting behind, because Carlos Hernandez is a very underrated wrestler. He's a very good scrambler. Now, on the feet, I do think Timon Dembarel is going to be able to hurt this guy. So that's kind of my problem here. I think Timon Dembarel is potentially live for a TKO in this spot. We've seen Carlos Hernandez on the losing side of the physicality game before. He has been finished. He has been knocked out. He's been hurt many times, and he relies on his cardio to kind of get him back in the game and to kind of overcome his opponents down the stretch. So I'm interested in the plus 600 for Timon Dembarel for the knockout prop. I think that's maybe the way that you could look at him, because I don't see him submitting Carlos Hernandez. Timon Dembarel does have a lot of submissions on his record, but Hernandez is a legitimate black belt. So unless it's like a club and sub or something, I really just don't see him choking this guy out. He could club him and hurt him, obviously, but Carlos Hernandez by decision via wrestling is definitely something that's on the table. The weirdest part about this fight is that the UFC is following the game plan of Asian prospect, get one over on notable Carlos Hernandez. It's the litmus test of whether or not you're going to sink or swim in this weight class. They're just giving everybody to Carlos Hernandez. And he was initially like, I guess, a plus 300 underdog or something like that. Now, this is where it gets gross, because I made the argument for Carlos Hernandez in his last fight, right? I wanted to find a way to bet him against Ray Tatsuria. However, we knew Ray was going to be able to outbeast him, and we needed to wait for the cardio to fade and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't end up pulling the trigger on it, but I wanted to. This fight was the one where I'd be like, hey, if I was getting plus 200 here on Carlos Hernandez, count me in. Like, this is the exact same fight as last time, except it's a far worse opponent. He probably thrives in this fight, and I'll take plus money. Well, they opened him plus money, and apparently everybody in the MMA community absolutely smashed it to the point that they have now moved this guy to being the favorite. However, Carlos Hernandez peaked at around minus 200, and since then, the money is steadily, slowly buying back the other way on Temon Dembarel. And that's where I'm going, okay, so I missed both sides of this. I missed the dog money on Carlos Hernandez. I missed the peak dog money on Tembarel. Do I take a shot on Tembarel as a dog at this point? Do I take the KO prop on Tembarel at plus 600 at this point? Do I stay off? Is this fight going to get low enough to where we get somewhere near back to a pick'em where Carlos Hernandez is viable and you're hoping that he can get out there and wrestle for 2 rounds and win a close decision? Carlos Hernandez, guys, is not the fight that you want to be laying chalk on. He's just not that kind of fighter. Now, in this particular fight, maybe you could go back and look at him being, the favorite or getting the win or deserving the win, etc., that kind of thing. But look back over the course of his UFC run. He's got 3 wins under the UFC banner, including his contenders fight. It's a split over Daniel Barres. It's a split over Altamirano. And then it's a decision win, a technical decision win of Denise Bondar. Now, Barres is 35 years old, and he's been a little up and down so far in the UFC. And it was a split decision that I felt he lost. Victor Altamirano is 35 years old. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's up and down in the UFC. And it was a split that was extremely close and could have gone either way. Denise Bondar is 32 years old. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. This man got TKO'd by Malcolm fucking Gordon. Like, this is not a strong run of fighters that you have wins over, and the best wins are by split decision, man. He only ever fights close. If you're getting a split decision fighter at plus 200, you take him. That's fine. You hope they pull off that split. But laying minus 200 on a split decision fighter is a completely different story. Okay, dad's gambling lesson over, all right? That's the read on this fight. I do not like the large chalk price tag on Carlos Hernandez. You never lay chalk on Carlos Hernandez. Just a simple rule of thumb. Temon Dembarel might be bad enough that it works in this case, but they have given him a full year since his road to UFC fight. So I kind of feel like we will see an improved version of him, and he does wing heavies. We have seen Carlos hurt, and frankly, if this fight is close, I fully expect them to rob Carlos Hernandez blind, because this kid with the cool hat is the one that they're going to want to have moving forward, not the guy they're feeding prospects to. So I may still end up just pulling the trigger here, holding my nose and taking the shot on Temon Dembarel, hoping that he gets the decision based off of damage, or maybe we take that KO prop. But that's a very, very sketchy fight with really weird line movement, because all the sharps got the money on Carlos Hernandez at plus 300 a couple weeks ago. Zhao Fang takes on Mingi. We've got 115 for Fang, 115.5 for Mingi. Both these women's MMA fighters are very, very young in their careers, very soft as far as their bodies are concerned. You see the hardening come with years of MMA experience and grappling and all that kind of stuff. We've got a 22-year-old, and then the worst of the two is the 30-year-old that doesn't look like she's in phenomenal shape. This is rough. Mengfi is a large favorite here, and she is a large woman. She has a huge height advantage here on this spot. She has really no, and I mean she, S-H-I, as in Ming-Shi. She has really no finishing upside, in my opinion. Now, she has 6 submissions on her record. So apparently she does have some kind of grappling chops, but it was like she's got, and again, she is an SHI. Ming-Shi has 20 fights in her career when she faces an 0-0 opponent and chokes her out in the first round. That's how she's getting those types of submissions. She's not a finisher. She's got 1 million decisions on her record. She's going to have a real hard time closing the distance against Fang. I believe Fang is going to be able to keep this woman on the outside and do whatever she wants to her. Whether she ends up getting a finish or not, that kind of depends on the game plan. I don't know what she looks like off of her back, and it's she, S-H-E, not S-H-I. I don't know what Fang looks like off of her back if she does end up getting taken down. We don't have a whole lot of footage on that kind of situation. So maybe Ming-Shi could get on top of her and hold her down and kind of stifle the offense a little bit. But I think Fang is going to be tall enough, long enough, strong enough to just kind of keep her at bay, kick her, poke her, constantly be scoring and get ahead, and then maybe land something big because she's got some decent body kicks. Maybe Mingi comes in for a takedown and she gets like a high elbow guillotine or something like that. The problem is I don't even know if they are training that kind of stuff over there. So I would love to take a degenerate sprinkle on Fang by submission at 12-1, just because that height and reach. You think of guys like Kennedy Nizuchukwu, who hits that high elbow guillotine on people that are shorter than him. I think that's going to be possible here. It's just whether or not she even tries to grapple. She, S-H-I, tries to grapple, and Fang does anything about it, or if Fang tries to just, disengage and keep the distance. I have no idea. This is the lowest of the low on women's MMA fights. I am 99% sure that Fang wins this fight, but she's a minus 425 favorite at 42 years old, coming from Road to UFC. All those are red flags. Every single one of those is a red flag. Don't worry, I can fix her. Next up, we've got Dong Hoon Choy taking on Karu Shota. We've got 125.5 for Choy, 125 for Sahota, and I apologize, I pronounced that wrong. I still have Shoto in my head from freaking My Hero Academia. It's Sahota. That's how you pronounce this guy's name, Sahota. Sahota's tall. He's very, very, very tall. This is another one of those fights where, every fight on this card, actually, you guys, it's tall guy versus short guy. I didn't expect the differences to be quite what they are. But Sahota is 29 years old. He's extremely lanky, extremely tall. He's got a couple split decisions on his record. I don't think he looks very strong, very physical, anything like that. And he's kind of the token other guy in here. He's fighting out of Manchester, England, and he's not Road to UFC. He's not Asian, So the fact that he's here and he's doing this thing, I kind of got to feel like Choy is the guy that they want to win this fight. Choy is the guy that looks like he's better, in my opinion. I think he's going to be stronger, more physical. I talked about how Sahota on the Monday podcast, he looks like a B- version of a Basharat brother. Like, he just has kind of the same lanky game plan, keep you at bay, try to get on top of you, wrestle a little bit more than you would expect for a guy with that kind of height and reach. But the physicality ends up being a real thing. Choy does look more willing to strike, willing to brawl. He's got a lot of knockouts. Last two fights on Road to UFC by split, which is concerning because these guys are terrible. So if you're going to splits with everybody, I don't trust you. I think Choi's the side, but this is a pick'em fight, and you've got Sahota, who's got the tall height, reach. Over 2.5 is maybe the way to go here. Minus 240. I'm not sure either of these guys is finishing anybody. This whole card, though, you guys, we are using the old gloves, so everything kind of leans towards the over. Just the way the fights go, the old gloves, not the old gloves, the old new gloves, because we switched back to the old gloves, making those the old new gloves. No, new old gloves. I don't know. We're going to use the gloves that don't get knockouts. So we could see a lot of decisions here on this card because a lot of these fighters, frankly, are not finishers, and even when they are finishers, they're fighting cans. So now that they're taking a step up and they're fighting somebody who's like a mid-level trash can, not like a soda can or like, the big dumpster style trash cans you keep in your kitchen, but more like the little foot pedal trash cans. That's what these guys are. They're the mid-tier trash cans. And because they're fighting somebody roughly their level, there's a chance it's a step up in competition, and that usually ends up meaning a decision. Because if you're getting a step up and that person is better than anybody you're used to fighting, generally you've got a hard time finishing right out the gates, unless you're just that guy and you've got it. Now, some of them will. Some of them are low level enough that they'll find an opportunity. We'll see some arm bars from guard, which almost never happen. Like, there'll be some crazy stuff on this card, I promise you. But I'm very, very nervous about overs and unders because you're just not sure who's going to come out there looking to make a statement and who's going to come out there looking to get a win and who's going to look for the control. I have no clue. I have no clue. This is a very, very sketchy card to bet on. Next fight up, you've got Balgian Jinsuli, and he's taking on Su Yong Yu. 135 for Jinsuli, 135.5 for Yu. Jinsuli does have a height advantage here. This was a very, very good stare down between these two guys. I very much enjoyed this one. Jinsuli's got an absolute brick for a head. He's like Asian China. He's like an Asian Chad. He's got a jawline on him. Like, this guy looks good. He's out there giving an extra flex for everybody. I like it. He is, let's see here, Chinese, and I believe Yu is South Korean. Yu is 28 years old. And I do like the way he mixes his game up. He does like to kind of brawl and punch his way into the pocket, barrel people over physically and take them down to the ground. Jinsuli is 28 years old, and he's subject to be taken down. He's been submitted a couple of times. Like, he's younger, but he's got more experience. I like the way the kid fights. He fights with confidence out there. This is, again, one of the maybe better fights on the card. It looks like Yu is taking some money. He's up at minus 180 at this point. Jinli is plus 150. I kind of thought maybe there's some opportunity for Jinli to land a sub in this spot, just because we know Yu is going to punch his way into range and then stick his head between your legs, trying to take you down. So I think Jinli by sub at plus 550 is worth like a little bit of a dart throw. But realistically, this is probably another split decision type fight where these guys just kind of go back and forth, land a couple big shots here and there, takedowns, reversals, that kind of stuff. I would expect this one to be one of the more fun fights on the card. I am not expecting Yu necessarily to be able to go out there and get a finish in this spot, even though he's got a decent number of finishes on his record. Again, trash cans. I kind of expect this is the type of fighter that he'll struggle to actually get out of there. And if he does win, it would probably be a decision. So yeah, interesting. I'm kind of partial to the Jinli side of things at plus 150. He's younger, he's bigger, he's got more experience. I like the sub prop look on him. So Jinli by sub, maybe that's the way we'll end up looking on this one. Bill, no word yet. And since this thing is so early, I will check in with my guy Andrew for you guys tonight. I will ask him whether or not there's been any type of action that we need to know about on this card, because he usually tweets first thing Saturday morning so everybody knows where the action is. But if he does that in this case, everybody's going to miss it. He did say, by the way, shout out my guy Andrew, they moved the schedule around and they're pulling an all-nighter for you degenerates. So if anybody is in Las Vegas, the Superbook is going to be open 24 hours so that people can get there to watch these UFC fights. So if you're in Las Vegas, head your ass on over to the Superbook. Say Clint sent you. Go say what's up to my guy Andrew. You can park the bus and watch some Asian fighters smacking each other in the head at about 2 a.m. this morning. So that's awesome. That is really cool that they're doing that for the people. So if you're a big enough degenerate, go take advantage. If I lived in Vegas, or even if I was on vacation this weekend or something, I'd be showing up. That'd be fun. Aussie Diaz and Zang Minyang, big boys up next, 205 pounds on the dot for both of these guys. Aussie Diaz looks a little soft. He looks a little out of shape. We've seen him before. 205 is not really his weight class. Moving up, he doesn't look quite as good. Minyang Zhang does look good. We've seen him get a couple highlights in the UFC already. This guy is 26 years old. He's a power puncher. He won his first fight in the UFC via knockout, but that was over Brinson Haberio, who we all know is terrible. But this guy definitely likes to go out there and sling leather. This is going to be a fun fight. Yo, what's good, Uncle Weezy? Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well today. Yeah, so Minyang Zhang is a minus 340 favorite. I could never. Aussie Diaz is plus 270. I guess if you want to throw a dart on the guy that's maybe fought better opposition and is 9-2, go for it. But I don't know. Aussie Diaz doesn't impress me at all. He's been knocked out twice. They threw him away after Contender Series. He gets in there and brawls it out. He's fought a couple of bums, and now they're shipping him halfway around the world to get KO'd by an Asian guy. That's the idea. Don't get it twisted. That's exactly what they want to happen here. But at 26 years old, 17-6 on the record, unless Minyang Zhang lands that big bomb, I mean, Aussie Diaz could absolutely pull, some kind of trash can move where he just hugs the guy's legs or something like that for 15 minutes and squeezes away with a decision now that he's in the UFC, keep that roster spot, something like that. I could see it happening. It would be disappointing. Everybody would hate it. But if he got the win, for him and his paycheck, his personal career, all that kind of stuff, it would make sense. So I'd be a little bit worried about Diaz not coming out here looking to throw leather immediately and maybe trying to take a bit of a safer approach. But I also cannot pick him. He's a guy that flared out at 185 and is now fighting up a weight class across the world. That doesn't scream confidence to me. So I am picking Minyang Zhang, and I do think that it's going to be Minyang Zhang by knockout. But that line is chalked. It's currently minus 185. Everybody thinks that knockout is going to happen. So Godspeed. God be with you. If you're trying to play some dog money here on Aussie Diaz, I can't. It won't be me. Volkan Ozdemir and Carlos Olberg up next. Now we get to the good stuff. 206 for Ozdemir, 205.5 for Olberg. Olberg does have a size advantage, you guys. He's very, very, very big. He would not meet Volkan Ozdemir's eyes, though. That I thought was interesting. He did the John Jones stare at your chest type of thing where he doesn't want to look at you. And Volkan Ozdemir was up there with crazy eyes. This guy looks like he's motivated and ready to go. So I had to kind of pump my brakes on this one a little bit, you guys. I had to pump my brakes. I said on Monday that I think it's Olberg, and to some extent, I still do. But I also said that I can't go from betting on absolute garbage cans like Alonzo Menafield and Dongwoo Choi against a guy like Olberg to then laying minus 250 on him against Volkan Oezdemir. I can't do it. That's my bias. That's my recency bias talking. I have tried to fade Carlos Olberg every step of the way. I have to accept that maybe he's not as bad as I thought he was, but I also have been trying to fade Volkan Oezdemir. I've wanted to be on the other side of Volkan Oezdemir. It looks to me like he's getting old. It looks to me like he's slowing down, but at the end of the day, he's still getting results. He's got back-to-back wins, finish wins over guys that are not that bad in Johnny Walker and Bogdan Oezdemir. The only guys that are beating Volkan Oezdemir, I'm sorry, that's Bogdan Guskov. Volkan Oezdemir is losing to guys like Nikita Krylov, Magomed, Jiri. He lost a split to Dom Reyes a long time ago. I mean, he's only really losing to contender circle level fighters. I've always said I don't feel like Volkan Oezdemir is as good as they prop him up to be, but I will also say that you have to respect his skill set. And if you're not in the contender circle, he will find a way to beat you. Now, Olberg, this is his test, but it's such a gigantic jump up in competition for him. He's fought literally every scrub the UFC has to offer. He got finished by Kennedy Nezuchuku in his first UFC fight, and they went, oh shit, and they had to move him back down the ladder. He fought Fabio Charant, who's not in the UFC anymore. Tefon Nchukwi, who's not in the UFC anymore. Nikolai Negamariano, who I don't think is in the UFC anymore. Ihar Puteria, who's barely holding on to a UFC roster spot if he's still in the UFC anymore. Dawoon Jung, who is no longer in the UFC anymore. Alonzo Menafield, who even though he is still in the UFC anymore, is terrible and ran face first into a punch. I can't get behind Carlos Olberg. Olberg absolutely can KO Oezdemir. I think Ozdemir's durability is cracking. I think his will to take punishment and survive and keep coming is fading. I absolutely do. And I've tried to fade him a lot. But using the shitty gloves that lead to less KOs and getting a phenomenal jump in competition from Alonzo Menafield to Volkan Oezdemir, I'm not sure that Carlos Olberg is going to pass this test with flying colors. And if he's not winning via first round KO, I don't know how he's covering a minus 250 price tag. I don't think he can skirt the outside and out kickbox a guy like Volkan Oezdemir for 15 minutes and look minus 250. He might win the fight, but that's a bad price tag. It's just against my religious beliefs to bet on Volkan Oezdemir at this stage of his career. So I know plus 200 dog or pass is probably the play here, and I can't bring myself to do it. And the over 1.5 is minus 200. The bookmakers are being extremely weird on this one because over 1.5 minus 200 is not the same thing as Olberg minus 250. It's just not. Unless Olberg suddenly is able to dance around the cage and look like Israel Adesanya, who he trains with sometimes, I don't see how that makes sense. So I'm kind of expecting Olberg is eventually going to catch Volkan Oezdemir. I will still say that Olberg wins. But I actually, for a split moment there, thought about parlaying Volkan Oezdemir, and I can't do it. I'm sorry, not Oezdemir. Sorry. Parlaying Volkan. Parlaying Carlos Olberg. There we go. I got the right name out of my mouth this time. I thought about parlaying Carlos Olberg for a hot minute there, but it was price-driven. It was bias-driven. I will still pick him to win this fight. That is the wrong price tag. Be careful. Next up, you've got Wang Kong taking on Gabriela Fernandez, 126 for both women. Wang Kong doing her thing. Went full Joker on the scales today. You love to see it. She looked absolutely awesome. And she is, guys, I don't know what's going on with the UFC numbers. I got to switch hats here. No, that's cold. I'm going to put my beanie back on. My poor bald head. So Wang Kong is huge. I talked about this on Monday. The numbers for the UFC stats are always, always, always wrong. People are lying about how tall they are. They had some old dude that measures from, the clavicle instead of from your shoulder blade or some shit. I don't know. The numbers are never right. They're never, ever, ever right. They have Quang and Gabriela Fernandez listed at being the exact height and the exact reach when you look at their stats on the UFC site. It's nowhere near close. Quang is massive. She is way taller than Gabriela Fernandez is. And Gabriela Fernandez is one of those walking trash cans that we talked about. She's 9-3. She is 1-2 in the UFC, the one coming via split against Carly Judice, who's just awful. I mean, this is a terrible run from her. So she came from the LFA and, she can take people down and choke them out, but she's grinding these nasty decisions off of people that just are terrible. And so the UFC is like, okay, great. Now go fight Quang. Wang is going to piece this girl up on the feet. She's going to absolutely destroy her. Shocker, I know. I'm picking the minus 950 favorite here. I'm actually kind of interested in the minus 3.5 as a parlay piece for Wang because at minus 950, it makes it a lot harder to parlay. It really doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't add anything to your number. The minus 3.5, you would need a 30-27 scorecard in there to cash that bet or a finish, which both I think are very possible. The thing with Wang is I'm not sure what the game plan is. I think she's going to knock out Gabriela Fernandez. Gabriela is known for having a pretty poor gas tank. As the fight goes on, she is slow and plodding to start, but she gets slower and slower the fight goes on. I fully expect Wang to be able to land big shots on her, attack the body, big kicks, dance around, make her chase. And then when she starts landing on her, I don't know if Gabriela Fernandez is just going to terminate her way to a decision, but she could. And we do see decisions on Wang's record. So that's why I'm like, maybe we do something with the minus 3.5 rather than just taking the inside the distance. I think it's Kong round 2, round 3 KO. I really do think she's going to finish her at some point, but the bookies are giving you plus money on this girl to finish inside the distance. She's coming off a massive viral knockout. She's the biggest hype train in the organization right now, and they're giving you plus money on the finish. That usually ends up being a little trappy, so maybe she's able to overcome all of that and gets the finish anyway. Like I said, I do think it's a round 2, round 3 KO via body attacks when her opponent is just exhausted. But if Gabriela Fernandez has that Brazilian juice blood running through her veins, which a lot of them do, she might just be able to hang in there through the beating and make it to a decision, in which case you would want that minus 3.5 rather than an inside the distance ticket loser. So I was looking at actually doing something. Minus 3.5 on DraftKings is minus 255. I know that sounds gross. I know that sounds awful, and I get that. It is kind of disgusting, but frankly, I'm not sure where or how Gabriela wins anything. Not a round, not nothing. Like, she won't be able to catch Kong. She's going to lose in the striking. If she tries to grapple, she's not a very good grappler. Kong is bigger and stronger than her. So if she does start the grappling, she's not going to be able to continue it. And we see phantom 30-27s for whoever's supposed to win these fights every single weekend now. So even if it is a close fight and you're like, oh, maybe it's 29-28, Wang will end up getting a 30-27 from Sal D'Amato and you're fine. So I'm kind of thinking about the minus 3.5 on Wang and using that in a parlay or something like that instead of getting involved elsewhere, because the minus 950 money line is just too much. I probably will play a little bit of something on the inside the distance. It's plus 130 right now. I think that makes sense. But again, that does also feel just a little bit like bait and has me a little bit nervous. What's up, Orlando? I see you in there. Bill Douglas says got Volkan KO plus 500. I don't hate it. Don't hate it. All right. Song Canan 171, Muslim Sikov 170.5. Big size advantage for Song. Very respectful face-off. A couple of old greasy legends here in the sport. Legend is a little bit of a strong word, but a couple of old greasy veterans here in this spot. Song is 34 years old. He's been knocked out 4 times, which is very concerning, going up against a guy like the King of Kung Fu, a guy who has 12 knockouts on his record here. He's coming off a split decision win that snapped a 2-fight losing streak. His last KO was in 2022 when he got Andre Fialho. So even though Muslim Sikov is known for just exploding and taking people's heads off, it's been a couple since we've seen that happen. Song, also a guy that is known for stomping his way forward and landing giant power punches, but he's turned into a more of a Sam Alvey type lately. He's been a decisionator, a slow plodding power striker that doesn't ever find that KO. His last knockout was in 2020 when he caught Callan Potter, who was in the wrong weight class. Like, he fought Ricky Glenn to a decision in his last fight. It's not a good look. So these guys are both old. These guys are both busted. I know Song is the guy that I said probably has some value on Monday, but I don't think I'm going to pull the trigger. He does have a decent size advantage here in this spot. So being at home, being in his backyard, fighting an old man, having the size advantage, Song probably is still the side from a betting perspective, but I don't think I want to put my money on it. You know, Muslim Sikov could spinning heel kick this guy to the head and just call it a day. This fight is gross. And it's probably going to be a greasy decision at the end of it. That's very low volume with both these guys kind of staring at each other. So, yeah, I don't want to get involved on that one at this point. Yan Janan takes on Tabitha Richi in your co-main event, you guys. 116 for Yan, 115.5 for Tabitha Richi. Yan has a very significant size advantage. That's a big girl. Richi is all lower body. She's all legs and thighs and ass like that. Tabitha Richi is thick as they come, but she's definitely on the short side here. I did pull the trigger on Tabitha Richi, you guys. I got plus 170. She's down to about plus 155 most places right now. I did have somebody on Twitter man up and take my bet on Bet Openly. So I've got some action head to head. I got so much backlash on this one. The only bet that I've locked into this point is Tabitha Richi. And I got so much hate for it, but nobody was willing to step up and put their money where their mouth was using Bet Openly with me. So props to you. Thank you very much for the man who did. I like this fight. I really like this fight. You've got Yan, who is going to have the sophomore slump, right? She's 35 years old. She hit the pinnacle of the sport. She got her title fight against Zhang Weili, and now she's coming off that. We see a big dip in fighters who are coming off title fights. It's just regularly we see that because they finally hit the peak of the sport. They finally had their shot. Everything was there, and especially like in her case where you take a beating, you just don't look right in your next fight. We see it a lot. And so now they're giving her Tabitha Richi, a young up-and-comer who needs a real solid win on her record to be able to move forward. She's coming off of two very close, slightly controversial fights where she did enough to get the win, but a lot of people aren't sold on her. If she gets a win over Yan, that's the one. That'll let people know that she's for real. That'll give the UFC the gas they need to move her in the right direction. And Yan has no grappling ability. A lot of people point to the Mackenzie Dern fight where she looked better in the grappling. In that one, Dern can't take anybody down, guys. Janan has no balance. She can get tipped over at a moment's notice. Even in the Zhang Weili fight. Now, I'm not comparing Tabitha to Zhang Weili, obviously, but Zhang Weili choked her unconscious. Finished her. Like, they literally woke her up and allowed the fight to continue. Couldn't believe it. I know so many people. I myself had a submission special that landed with some Zhang Weili by sub, and I felt robbed that night of that because it was over. So there is a big window for grappling to be used, and I believe that's why this fight is taking place. If Tabitha Richi can avoid the big shot, she'll be able to get inside. She'll be able to knock Yan Janan over. Too many names. She'll be able to knock Yan Janan over and then get on top of her. Richi's never really been the super control type of fighter, but I think in this fight she'll be able to. And if she just rinse and repeats and keeps Yan uncomfortable and keeps tipping her over, she will be able to do enough to get the win. She'll be able to tire her out. You know, maybe she'll be able to even lock up a sub because that is something that people don't really talk about. I believe Richi's a black belt. Right now, Tabitha Richi by sub is 11-1, and we have seen Yan give up the crucifix position and get TKO'd by Carla Esparza. Terrible look. We've seen her get submitted. She does have a submission loss on her record. Granted, is from earlier in her career, but considering she has a second sub that is not tracked in that Weili Zhang loss, she's been submitted twice. She's 35 years old now, taking on somebody who is in her prime. I actually think the 11-1 sprinkle Tabitha Richi by sub has a little bit of legs to it. I'm on the Tabitha Richi side, you guys. Good luck. I wanted to do the Yan parlay just for the sake of the meme. You guys know I like my meme bets and like to have fun out there with everybody, but couldn't do it because I can't get to this part of the Yan parlay. Main event time, Petr Yan takes on Deiveson Figueiredo, 135.5 for Petr Yan, 135 on the dot for Deiveson Figueiredo. Both guys look fantastic on the scales. Yan, significant size advantage. You know, that's something that I never say. Yan is never bigger than anybody. I mean, even when he fought Merab's the smallest guy in the weight class that's a contender. They sized up pretty well with each other, but he's never bigger than anybody. He's bigger than Deiveson, you guys. This is a spot where I want you guys to go click the live tab here on Home of Fight, the YouTube channel. Click the live streams. Watch my preview of this from the Monday podcast. It's in the live tab. I have timestamps set up for you. It's not going to be hard for you to find. Just go watch the main event breakdown of this fight because I am your king of bantamweights. This is my weight class. This is my division. I do absolute gangbusters and I slice and dice everybody at 135. I told you what's going to happen in this fight. I know what's going on here. Short notice, too long don't read is Petr Yan wins this fight. Okay, I think he's a justifiable minus 300 favorite in this spot, frankly. Yes, he will probably give away the first round to Figueiredo because he's a slow starter. But after that, all bets are off. I think Yan is going to take over with speed, pace, and pressure and just being the bigger, more physical guy, which is rare. Deiveson Figueiredo usually is the bigger, more physical guy. He is not in this fight. So I think Yan is going to absolutely dice him. I kind of think we're going to see a round 4, round 5 TKO from Petr Yan on this one. It could go the distance. It could go all 15, but we've seen Deiveson Figueiredo slow down in fights. We've seen him get hurt in fights. Brandon Moreno finished him not once, but twice. I kind of think Yan by KO in the later rounds is the way this thing is going to end up looking. I like Petr Yan. He is a parlay piece, and I'm trying to figure out a way to use him because the rest of this card, like I mentioned, has been incredibly sketchy. I thought about Maha shot. Now I'm definitely really cooled off on Maha shot, and I think maybe violence in that fight. So maybe we do the under in that fight. That could work. Doesn't go the distances like minus 225. I originally thought Loner Kavanaugh. Minus 380 is an absolute insane price tag. Jose Ochoa is massive. He's a Brazilian monster as an underdog. We've got a Cage Warriors guy being flown out to China for this fight. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm kind of tempted on the plus 300 on Ochoa side now after watching these weigh-ins and these face-offs. Numajum Temburel, he's an underdog. I'm not parlaying Carlos Hernandez. Fuck that shit. Fang, maybe minus 425. No, like I'm not trusting a 22-year-old minus 425 women's MMA fighter who doesn't know how to do shit off her back. How am I supposed to trust that in a parlay? Who else? Mingyang Zang, maybe. He's minus 340 over Ozzy Diaz, who's in the wrong weight class. Maybe, but it's gross. Olberg, nope. Thought on Monday maybe it would be Olberg. Nope, not doing Olberg. Wang minus 3.5. Wang minus 3.5 on DraftKings is minus 225. I think she either wins a decision or she gets the finish, and the decision is probably dominant one way or the other. So I think that would make sense. Wang minus 3.5 and Piotr Jan minus 310 using DraftKings is minus 119. So that is a viable option in my opinion. The over 2.5 for Yan Jonan and Richi could be an option, except I think that Yan could win by KO and Richi potentially could win by sub. So as much as the blindly betting over 2.5 in women's MMA angle is usually a solid one, I don't think that makes sense for this card. So I'm really struggling, you guys. I'm really struggling because Piotr Jan is a home run shot, in my opinion, in this spot. I love Piotr Jan in this spot. And even at minus 300, I think it's justifiable. I think you can use that for anything you want to. I like it. I just need I need something to put it with. You know, I will use other combat sports for like my betting record for you guys. So like I bet Jake Paul. No problem. But what I want to do is bet like Piotr Jan parlayed with my Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. I want to parlay Piotr Jan with the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. Like that's what I want to do. I want to use Piotr Jan with shit that is not MMA because this card is ass. If you want to rapid fire some of these juicy underdog spots that we've talked about, I think that's the path to victory on this card. If you want to look for 10, 12 to 1, 20 to 1 sub and KO props on people, this is the card for that kind of bullshit. If you want to find the guy that's going to get, a point taken for grabbing the fence and bet a 50 to 1 draw, this is the card that you do that on. Parlaying up favorites, this ain't the card. This ain't the card for that one. So, oh man. Yeah, Kate saying I'm holding Kong minus 550. Hey, you beat the number by half, man. You beat the number by half. So congratulations. You got a great one on that one. Steph saying, are we staying up, Clint? I am not. I unfortunately have some stuff going on. We're doing an early Thanksgiving. We've got a wedding. We've got like all kinds of shit this weekend. So I won't be able to stay up, unfortunately. I'll get up early and catch some of it, but I just won't be able to do all of it. MMA Locker Room, what's up, buddy? Richi is the dog of the week. Let's go. Hey, we're on the same side, man. We're on the same side. She is my Link Memorial dog of the week as well on this one. Void saying I hit Dubronk's decision at 11 to 1. Exactly. See, if you find that kind of spot, congratulations. I never would have thought that fight was going to go the distance. Matt saying Dong Hu Choy and Kavanaugh, the locks, taking the risk on Ozdemir as well. Good luck, Matt. Good luck. I thought Kavanaugh was definitely a good option, but after kind of looking a little bit more into it, I've cooled off on that. I definitely think he deserves to be the favorite, but minus 400 I think is a little bit crazy here. I may be taking a dog shot on the other side just because of how insane this line has gotten. And I understand and respect anybody taking the dog shot on Volkan Ozdemir. I get it, because I've been trying to get on the other side of freaking Olberg as much as I possibly can, and I'm betting like the bums of the UFC against him. So I almost feel like I have to bet Volkan Ozdemir, mostly because I don't want to. Mostly because I hate it so much. I don't want to put money on it. I feel like I have to. I might end up throwing a small dog shot on Volkan Ozdemir for you as well. But we'll see. We'll see. Mystery Man says... Mr. Mystery Man says Peter Fig definitely seems like Piotr by decision. I don't see a finish. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Scorpion MMA says Fang 2-3 KO coming, Kong 2-3 KO plus 85 to 1 parlayed. I don't mind that. I actually don't mind that one bit, Scorpio. That's a nice look, because I do agree with you on the Kong KO 2-3, and I do think if Fang is going to win this fight, then she's very live for the KO. So the KO 2-3 on that one as well could be the move. Good call. I like that. I might get in on that a little bit. All right, guys. That's the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show for UFC Macau. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys always watching the show. We'll see you Monday. There's no fights this week coming, but we will have a podcast on Monday to kind of recap the chaos and just kind of talk and chill and chat. So don't go anywhere. Come back, join me on Monday. We'll have a good time. Good luck on all your degenerate action, everybody. Good luck if you're waking up early or staying up late. Either way, you know I respect the degeneracy, and I will get my card out for you guys tonight, because right now I only have the one single bet, and I know I'm going to have more, so it's just a matter of finalizing my card before I go to sleep instead of waking up and doing it over coffee the first thing in the morning. You guys do great. Be good. Kick some ass. Pile chips. Let's get out of here. Let's roll.